Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. It's your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcast with Rafa Sparza coming to you live. Again, we were just on like 10 minutes ago, but we're not done. This has to keep going. Here is why. I was very excited to talk with you about Chris beating up AJ Agazarm. That's fun, but we're done with that. Now we need to get to you guys, the people who watch the show who might be directly affected by their lack of training options with COVID. We're going to get to that in a very cool website that these two gents have put together, and I'm very, very, very stoked to give you guys that information. Before we do, if you have gotten too fat, I'm not talking about you guys, I'm talking about me, and you need to buy some new apparel, we highly encourage you to go check out our sponsor. That is Nogi BJJ Gear. Now, one thing you can buy from them, they've got a little Corona weight rash guard, and you can buy that, but you can also buy the Corona weight Champ rash guard, which, by the way, no one's really going to be able to tell you you're not right now because they probably can't train with you. It's a rough life. But here's the good news about that. We are looking for ways to try and solve that. And if you are in a region or an area or a state where you can't train too much, our guests today will be able to hopefully give you a little bit of spark of promise. So today, why don't we go ahead and welcome our guests, Wesley Reed and Howard Shaw. How are you guys doing? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. I'm actually doing quite well.
Well, see, that's a pleasure to hear. And I'm so stoked that you guys are putting together your collective resources to make something positive happen in the jiu-jitsu community. So I guess first and foremost, I should ask, how long have you guys not been training for? Or were you not training for, period?
So I haven't trained consistently since I think it was around March 6th, March 8th. I was able to go and train 2 times when I live in Phoenix. And so we lifted our lockdown and I trained a couple of times in basically the 2 weeks before it caught fire again. And I just wasn't comfortable continuing to train.
Yeah, I stopped training the last week of February, I believe. It's kind of started picking up. And I was working at a hospital at the time, actually. And so on top of a lot of sick patients that I was around, I was also training 4 times a week. And I was like, okay, this is probably a really bad situation. So I stopped the training and kind of haven't been back since yet, but it's coming. So...
And with good reason, because I think you guys are in a similar space that I am, which is I want to train, but I don't think it was necessarily responsible to just go out and train. And there are some leeways that they've made out here in California, even though we've been very strict, and there's been a lot of garage sessions. Have you guys been tempted by the fates to go to either one of those kinds of sessions?
So I now have trained in a garage, well, actually in a driveway outside of a garage a couple of times, and it's with a dedicated group of folks. So we, the main training partner, it's him, his wife, and his 2 sons. They've all been COVID tested and COVID approved, as well as I've been COVID tested negative as well. And then we have one other training partner, and sort of the thought process is that's a little bit bigger than we would really recommend. But it's kind of like if you train with one person in the household, you train with them all, and they're both working from home, and the kids are going to school remotely. So in kind of our juggling the calculus of risk, it was kind of one of the things where I'm cool with training with the family and one other person in our cohort, and we felt pretty good about this. And there's a lot of other reasons that I think we can get into that we've kind of went through and thought about what does it mean to train in these small groups, and not only the reasons to do it, but also from what's driving it from a COVID standpoint, but also I think a lot of the other positives that might come out of this type of training as well.
Yeah, so I have my first training session this week actually, which is why I said I'm not there yet. But yeah, I have a home office with mats in it. So I have a dedicated jiu-jitsu space, and I've got a couple people that are coming over to start training with me, and both of them have been off the mats for a similar amount of time, and so it kind of worked out. One of them actually came from our website, which is www.downtoroll.com, and the other one is just a personal friend of mine.
So yours came actually from your own website.
Correct.
Well, it works, everybody. So
it's interesting. Yeah, it actually does work.
You know, for years, I want to tell you guys, I have been pitching the idea of a comedy sketch. This is pre-COVID, where you would basically get profiles like you're trying to like a dating website, and you would have different training partners, and you go, no.
I mean, this is Tinder, right? This is Tinder for jiu-jitsu.
And I'd been joking about it until I was talking with my friends, and I was like, guys, I think my comedy sketch needs to happen in real life. Like, I think somebody needs to do this. I don't have that ability other than making people laugh. So I was so relieved when I saw that you guys had done the actual work here. So I guess the question is, how did you guys decide to create a website, and what prompted that? Specifically, if you guys don't mind telling us about that.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in May, Arizona opened up, and I train under Gustavo Dantes, and he really wanted to adopt a very conservative approach to opening up, and we were going to have a very limited schedule. And part of that was you would have one partner dedicated for the month, so you and this individual would train exclusively, and that you had 2 classes you could go to, and they were the same classes. So it just, you picked Tuesday and Thursday, I'm going to the 10 a.m. and I'm training with this individual. And the class size was extremely limited. And so I was very happy about that. And let me, I guess, backtrack a little bit. So I am the sole breadwinner for my family. My wife has some medical conditions that prevent her from working, and also present additional risks from COVID. And then her mother lives with us, and she just is about to turn 70, I think. I don't want to say she is 70. Anyway, and so those were very big concerns for me. So I'm not saying that everybody else will have these same concerns, but that was the really primary motivator for me, was my livelihood, and making sure I can provide for my family, and making sure that I'm not exposing my family to any unnecessary risk. So I've been working remotely. I've been, wearing masks, hand washing, social distancing, in, grocery shopping, and really all those things. Like, we don't go out to eat, and all that stuff. So I was really comfortable with what I felt was a rational approach to opening up, with the safety of the students in mind. But due to the lockdown in Arizona lasting, 2 months, I think there was just an extreme amount of pent-up demand for students to get back to training. There were, schools struggling to stay open financially. And so the decision was to open up more liberally. And I wanted to give it a shot and just kind of keep an eye on things, because we had just opened up, and we just didn't have a lot of COVID infections. So it was kind of, my background is in computer engineering, math, and science. So I'm a statistics guy, and I just kind of, do some rough math on that. And I'd say, and I'm probably not going to lose the COVID lottery on this one. So checking it out the first time, training was okay. And then the second week I went back for one more class, and then Arizona's levels just started spiking. And so I only went to those 2 classes, and I was raging. I was raging on social media. That's the other thing, is I was just raging about people, not wearing masks, complaining that this is a hoax. I personally, for work, I build some of the largest data centers in the world. And so I work with some of the largest cloud infrastructure companies in the world. And so when January hit and they increased their forecasts from one quarter to the full year because they were concerned about supply chain, I kind of thought this might be an issue. So I was taking this very seriously from the beginning. So anyway, my coaches, training partners were like, "You need to chill, bro." They're like, "You need to calm down." So people don't know a lot about me. My nickname is Full Howard. There's another story in that, but I was definitely Full Howard. I had lost my shit entirely. Couldn't train and just was seeing no end in sight. So one of my coaches actually said, "Hey, why don't you reach out to this other guy that's on the team? Because he's in a similar circumstance as you." And so I reached out to him and was like, "Hey man, like, do you want to train together?" And he's like, "Yeah, absolutely." And he had concerns with his daughter. So we set it up. I was going to go over to his place and train. And then he messaged me back and said, "Hey, would you mind going and getting a COVID test just to make everything cool with the family?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I actually thought about it already. So made arrangements, took my COVID test. They were backed up in getting results. I got my results back negative. I texted him and I was like, "Hey, we're good to go." In his job, he works for a Major League Baseball team as one of their mental skills coaches. And so in that gap between us making arrangements, me getting my test and getting my results back, he got called up and had to pack up the family in their RV and head off for the season. So I had reached out to Wes. Wes has Wes's profession is physical therapy for jiu-jitsu athletes. Got to give him a plug here, and he has really good content on social media. And so we've trained together, and he'd moved away, but we kind of kept in contact just through his Instagram posts and stuff. And I'm like, wow, I really like that post and stuff. And I just kind of felt I was missing connection with people and community. Just I hang out with these people, 2-3 times a week, and what's going on, and we shoot the shit, and then we go kill each other, and like just all that was missing. So it's this awkward thing of like in kindergarten, like, "Hey, would you be my friend?" So it was like I messaged Wes and was like, would you ever just want to like grab a virtual cup of coffee sometime? And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And so we hopped on a Zoom meeting. It was July 3rd. I remember because I had the day off. And was basically telling him this story about, poor me. I did all this work so I could go back to training, and and now I'm left with nothing again, right? Kind of thing. And then he started talking about he was going to go buy mats, and he wanted to go find some people to train with. And we just had the idea, like it was just right then and there of just like, I'm like, wait. So like there's people with mats, and then there's people who want to train, and like we just need to connect them with each other. And and over the past couple of years, just a lot of the stuff I'd done at work, I kind of had very like junior skills in some web design stuff that I was kind of like, I don't know how to do this really well, but I definitely know how to do it. And so it was within 10 minutes, we had a web form up that people could go in and sign up. And I had no idea like what we were going to do with it from there, but I just knew it was like, there's got to be people who want to get connected with one another, and we got to figure out a way to make it happen. So that was kind of the way the seed was initially planted. There's probably some more irony in there is I had bought the website Down to Roll like 2 years ago with the idea that you were talking about, Raph. Like I was driving around on like a Tuesday at like 2:00, and I was like, I want to go choke somebody. And, like somebody can go down to the Y and play racquetball, or you can go down to the park and pick up basketball. But like there's nowhere for me to just go and get in a fight like without getting arrested. And so I went, and when I first started training, one of my coaches would always throw like just ad hoc, like, "Hey, does anybody want to come in on Saturday or Sunday, and who's down to roll?" And so that just kind of became our thing. Like my first competition gi, I have a DTR patch that like we just had like custom made to throw on there. And so that was Down to Roll, and I just parked it on Teespring trying to see if I could ever come up with a t-shirt design. that would sell something. And I got off the phone with Wes thinking, yeah, I'm going to have to go get a domain and like figure out web hosting. And as soon as we finished the call, I like had this flashback of a message I got from GoDaddy that somebody wanted to buy the domain a few months ago that it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. And I was like, oh yeah, I own a domain. I already have a website. And so I just went to work, freaked my wife out over the weekend. Like I just went to work, like getting WordPress set up and building out the website and playing with different things. And by the end of the weekend, you know, we had
It was on
what you see, you know.
I mean, we'll get the show in a second here. Wes, how about you, man? I mean, for you, you're down somewhere else. I mean, clearly you had this idea a bit ago, Howard, especially if you were in the process of being like 2 years ago, you bought this website. And I'm guilty of doing the same. I actually own, instead of Flow Grappling, I own nograppling.com. And I haven't done a goddamn thing with it. I just wanted to do it as a parody website of what they do. And then I realized sometimes I can't write anything funnier than how ironic some of their news articles are.
I couldn't have said that better. Yeah, you know, I kind of landed in a unique situation myself with this whole COVID thing. I also train at Gustavo Dantes down at Phoenix. Howard and I are training partners. In the middle of this whole thing, I stopped training, and then in March, my wife got relocated to northern Colorado. So in the middle of this whole situation, we had to sell a house and buy a house and do all that. So on top of that, the gyms are all closed down, and you don't really get a chance to shut that door with your training partners. You know, you form a relationship with all your training partners, and then COVID hits and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait for everything to open back up and it's all going to be good to go. However long that is. But for me, I didn't even get to say bye to my coaches or anybody. I was just gone. So, and relocating up to northern Colorado. So not only is it, I can't train, I also don't know anybody really up here to train with. So, it put me in a even different of a situation where like, yeah, I kind of need this website actually to get going. And it worked out.
God, this is sadder than any movie I've seen all year. Like already, it's just like
it's rough, man. But you know what though? I mean, everybody's feeling it. You know, it is sad. But the things that Howard and I talked about, there's like been a whole back end process. And I did it for my own business as well. But in order to be really mission driven, which is what we want, you know, you have to know the problems that people are facing, and you take something as valuable as jiu-jitsu for a lot of us is, and then you take it away for an extended period of time, and then you take it away with no end in sight. Man, it's rough. You know, I personally rely on jiu-jitsu for my physical and mental health, and when it's gone, man, it's like taking one of the legs out from a four-legged chair. Like the whole thing is wobbly. And so for me, it was like, it was a big deal. And I know I'm not the only one that's feeling that. So if I'm not the only one that's feeling that and everybody else is feeling that too, then we got to create some unique solutions here and try and get something going, because we all need it.
Well, bless you for that. And I got to tell you why. Here's why. When I would go, I have a couple guys who I train with, but I had come to a realization that I didn't want to just train with everybody right now. You know, I didn't want to be in a space where I would be inconsiderate to my wife or anybody else that I might run into. And I have been holed up here at Verbal Tab Grappling Hour Studios with a banner. And I got to tell you, when you do these interviews, I can talk to athletes day in and day out about who'd you beat? How'd you win? Is that great? And talking about jiu-jitsu after a long period of time can get to you, but I've done it. It was talking to the gym owners that were on the brink that started to make me almost a therapist, where I'm like, I'm not qualified. I can relate to you, But at a certain point, I like the empathy that you have to take on with each of these interviews with these guys who are supposed to be the gyms that we're supposed to go back to in theory, made me get to the point where I was like, I have to train. I have to figure out something. And I would relate this to my friends, which is to go to training, I'd be on an upper. Going away from training, I'd be on a downer because I didn't know when my next training session was. And that, for a person who likes to have a schedule and really tries to maximize their time, is grating to my mental health, to my friends' mental health. And I'm sure as shit, my training partners were like, I don't want to get any more texts from Raph. Like, he's trying to get the next training session, and they may not even be thinking of it. So my theory was, and I've tried to take as much as I can from people like Chris Moriarty and of course Stephen Kesting, which is where I saw you guys, which is that they've said, obviously at the beginning, we need to not train. Now that it has gone on for so long, they're looking at the realistic approach of, well, we've got to do something. And I think the theory is here, you mentioned cohorts, other sports are using bubbles. So do you mind explaining the idea behind the small groups aspect of the training that you guys are suggesting or proposing behind downtoRoll.com?
Yeah. And I don't know if, so right now, based on the data that's available, there's no way to completely eliminate risk, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that just it just is what it is. Without a vaccine and viable, massive disbursement, treatment, and all that kind of good stuff, there's no way to completely eliminate risk. So then the question is, how do I minimize this risk? And then it's just, permutations and combinations from there, so that the more people you add to your group, the more and more variables that you're going to have to solve for. And so 2 is a great number, I think, to start with. There's only a couple, variables to solve for. And 2, 3, 4 is not too much terribly complicated for that. I feel like once you start to increase the numbers over 4, the complexity of this just becomes, at that point, it's go to the gym and take all that risk. And the other reason is, not only is it the risk of catching COVID is greatly reduced, but the ability to do rapid contact tracing and make sure that the rest of, say the training cohorts, plural, in a region wouldn't infect each other, right? So if you have a full school that's open and you have, 30, 50, 200, 300 students, you get one student that tests positive, the whole school is going to be shut down. So this again gives us the ability to really diversify both the risk of catching, the risk of transmission, and also making sure that the rest of the team can continue to train, indefinitely. I think for us as full-time workers, parents, students, what have you, the bubble idea is just not realistic, right? I mean, that is, hey, can we take 50 people and their coaches and all these people and go sequester, in a hotel or in specific housing for, what should be weeks at a time, right? And go through, strict COVID testing. I mean, you're talking about substantial financial resources and all those things, which I just, it's obviously not realistic. So that was long-winded, but anyway, so that I think gets us to why do we get to, somewhere between 2 to 4 is one, I think it's a good number from a risk mitigation standpoint. And then if anybody's tried to organize a meeting or a family outing or, getting your friends together, I mean, again, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, it's not too terribly difficult to kind of figure out, hey, what days of the week, what time of the week sort of work, and all that sort of stuff. And so it makes it really tangible and feasible to coordinate a bunch of small groups where things will work well together, rather than a small number of large groups, which I think would be risky and next to impossible.
Wes, have you guys gotten any flack from people? Because I would say the majority of folks right now in our sport, God bless them, are the just bleed guys. So there are a number of guys who just go, I just need to train. I'm just going to go. Have you gotten any response from those folks who see maybe what you guys are trying to do and are like, I'm just going to go train. I don't care.
I personally haven't. Also, if that's your approach, then by all means, but that approach is also not for everybody. We're not trying to take that approach away from anybody. It's for some and not for others. And there's plenty of people, myself included, I'm a pretty, I guess, low risk individual as far as dying from this thing. But at the same time, I have, my wife works in a hospital, and if she gets sick and if I give it to her, then I've got a bigger problem where my local community hospital is now having their patients served by somebody who is also potentially distributing that throughout the hospital. So we're not trying to poo-poo on anybody else's approach. We're just simply trying to cater to the people who may not have, who may have some sort of circumstance in their life that precludes them from taking that approach. So I haven't received any flack from anybody. I don't anticipate we would. There's always going to be haters out there, but
don't invite them. Just don't. Like, the worst thing you can do is dare somebody, and they might sit at home with hate in their heart, and they'll be like, I wasn't going to hate this guy. And now people
are logging on right now. They're getting ready to start sending us some hate messages.
I'm going to tell you this right now. Go to Reddit. Reddit is where all things go to die. And I tell you this because we have literally had a history of being like, hey, we want to give some free shit away. Do you guys like free shit? Downvote. And I go, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't want anything from you dummies. Just fucking have this fucking rash guard.
Oh, man. Yeah, I have nothing from the jiu-jitsu community specifically about, what we're doing. And I think part of it is that approach of what, hey, man, like, I get it. This is new. There's all kinds of stuff going on. There's a lot of opinions out there. I'm just going to stick to the information that I have, and I'm going to go with that and make those decisions. You're going to go with whatever information you got, and I don't want to get into it, right? Because it's about, I think that was part of me losing my shit, right? Like the whole time just losing my shit and being like, I can't get people to change their minds. And I felt like, I'm just trying to hold this thing back, and I'm just being overrun with, questionable science and data, right? Just leave it at that. And so I thought, this is futile, right? For me to shout into these other screaming voices, right? That we're not getting anywhere. And to have an opportunity to channel all that same energy and frustration into something that's positive and that creates what I need, right? Because a lot of this is solving my problem, solving Wes's problem, and saying like, let's just solve this problem. There's other problems in the world, but like this is one we can actually affect. So we'll go ahead and affect this one, and see where it goes. I have gotten, I think, valid criticism or questions, just technical stuff, right? Privacy policy, what type of data are you guys collecting? And I was like, yeah, those are good questions. Those are actually all the questions my wife asked when I told her I was starting a website. And she made me form an LLC and get a PO box and all this stuff.
This is, all those things this is a legitimate thing. It's not, we're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes on what this is. We are setting this up as a legit thing with not only what we're doing now, but we have ideas for the future on how to grow this thing in some very novel ways, and some ways that we believe will continue to help grow jiu-jitsu and give greater access to jiu-jitsu to people who live in areas that are jiu-jitsu underserved. So this was born out of a necessity from COVID, but it also has a future and a vision that goes far beyond.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, like one of the things, several things that Wes and I talked about that like we felt we were missing from jiu-jitsu was, community, the ability to have goals and progress. I know for me, I competed a ton, and I can't compete. I could compete at COVID weight, right? But I'm normally a lightweight, and I got a lot of work to do to get back to lightweight, and I can't do it on a treadmill. It just, I can't, right? Like my brain is just not capable of doing that. So to have an ability to have goals and track progress. And then the other thing that we've been talking about is, some of the best athletes in the sport that we admire, they might be a part of a large team and a large academy and whatnot, but they actually train in very small groups, and they work on very fine details of their game. And you look at, Craig Jones and Lachlan, you look at Meows and Mendez, these are really, really great athletes that I think also present, not just the near-term benefits and what we need for jiu-jitsu, but also the potential long-terms about where else you could take your game with a community that's driven by like-minded people that want to make the most, not just get by with COVID, but actually say, hey, how do we flip this into a positive and make the most out of this situation, make the most out of the technology that's available to us, make the most out of the people who are trying to make the most out of it.
Absolutely. And I want to compliment you guys. Now, again, when I say this, know that this is mostly the situation that's yelling at you, not the host. Present. Where was this in 2006? If you guys would have made this, I would have been a black belt by now. So first off, dick move you guys, because I remember living in Illinois. And when I lived in Illinois, I was doing school out there, and I was looking to train because I was just getting into this. And then as soon as I moved to go do grad school over in Kentucky, they built a school. And then once I lived in Kentucky, I was like, well, let's see where I can go. Closest training center was about 20 miles away. Now, same thing. And I said, cool story, everybody. Just keep opening up jiu-jitsu gyms every time I leave. I'm fine with that. So anytime anybody asks how long I've been training for, I usually give them a look. And then if somebody knows me, they go, we don't ask Raph that. We don't talk about that with him. So
your inbox.
But I would tell you this, is that I think you guys are 100% correct in saying that, let's say post-COVID, people can go to train at their gyms, but to specialize train and have a very similar minded person, this could have huge implications, especially if you move, just like you mentioned. I've got a buddy who, my co-host for Verbal Tap, I sent this to him the first moment I saw it, because I said, dude, and he's coming back from like knee surgeries, everything surgeries, and he was just about to come back, and then COVID hit. So for me personally, I just think it has a lot of applications, but the most useful to all of us at the moment is at the very least creating a sense of community and connectivity, because I feel, and maybe you could tell me differently here, but I feel, as somebody who's witnessing the overall spectrum of both jiu-jitsu practitioners who comment online and who reads any version of science that is data peer reviewed, I think our community's gone absolutely nuts. And I think that it has been very difficult to hold regular conversation with people. And I do think that is in part to people not having their training outlet. So I have told people, I'm like, listen, I'm going to have to mute you right now, but we can revisit this in 6 months. It's just right now, you do no good to me.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, so I would say that there's a lot of people with an initial interest, and then really the question comes down to, I think those of us like really on like the science and medical community side, right? We have friends, we have connections, or deep business and economic connections that we're making these decisions based on, and maybe not everybody else has that same information. But but for us, it's kind of a no-brainer that this is how we want to train. I love the video that both the article and the podcast that Stefan did with Chris Moriarty, and then his follow-up video. I mean, those are all the things that we've been thinking about. And then there's a group of people that are like, like you said, the Just Bleed guys. But then there's really the chunk in the middle that's like, I just don't want to get yelled at, and I don't really know. And they're kind of on the fence. And to be able to say, you might not be comfortable going back to the school, or your schools, you might be thinking, oh, I don't need to sign up, or I don't need to go find, a cohort to go train with, because, my school is going to open up in a week or two, or 3 or 4, or whatever. Those of us who I think are looking at all this data are saying, me personally, I can't go train in a group environment like that until there's a vaccine out that's proven effective. And that's the end of the story. I can't. There's no, especially when there's alternative ways that I can mitigate the risk. And so those are the things that go into me making that decision. And I think there's probably people that were like me a few months ago that thought, okay, this is all going away. We're going back to normal. This is going to die out. Like, it's no problem. Like, we got this, and as that dream kept slipping away, that's, I think, when I kind of said, I'm going to abandon that, that line of thinking, and go with what I know we can make happen.
Well, here's some good news. Dr. Chris Moriarty just sent a note and says, love what you guys are doing. So you are reaching a very, very special demo. And I have to say, man, I've complimented those guys so much, because I said what I think they're trying to do is a public service. And I think the hardest part about putting yourself out there and doing that public service is you sometimes get shit on. And so I was doing an interview with Chris, and at the very end of it, he came up with this really nice 6-phase process. He really thought it out. And at the very end, somebody was like, you're going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is terrible. What you're talking about is absurd. And I was like, he's trying. The goal is to get us all back to training. So it's one of the rare times that I very kindly told one of our audience members to go fuck themselves. And you know what the nice part is? I'm pretty sure, I think after that, they started trying to make a GoFundMe to help gyms. And I said, great, glad that you're doing that. As long as you're doing something productive with your time, that's great. I just don't have time for people just trying to tear down positive, good energy, good attempts to create solutions. And like we said, one that has a long-term benefit. Yeah. I am going to go ahead and, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to do a little share screen. So if you guys are watching at home, congratulations. You've now made it to the presentation format of the interview, which is not always something that the people get. So if you love some data and some information, get excited, kids. So this is what you get when you go to the very first part of the website. So this is a prompt, a series of questions that says that you are committed to doing social distancing. So where did that idea come from to actually make sure that people would kind of adhere to that?
I mean, a bit of it is trustworthiness and the honor system, right? But it's really saying like, hey, I'm signing up and I'm taking this seriously, right? I'm saying that either me personally, I'm concerned, or you know what, I want to go train, I want to participate, and I understand that the people who I'm going to go train with, they're taking this very seriously. So I'm either doing it for myself, others, or both.
Awesome. And I do notice, so when they were asking about data and privacy about that, can we understand how is that being taken care of, at least on a level that we kind of understand?
Sure. Yeah. So my original sign-up form, we had a ton of questions, and it was a little overwhelming, and it was part of the feedback we actually got from Stefan Kesting on the website. I had messaged him just out of the blue and was like, hey, I did this thing. I don't know if it's any good. Could you take a look? And he took a look and said, your form is messed up. So anyway, so as of right now, we're really just looking to say, who are you? How do we get a hold of you via email? Where are you? And what's your rank? right? Let's just make it really easy to sign up, and then we follow up with an autoresponder. So we're not capturing. I don't want phone number. I don't want street address. No other, any type of identifying information. And then we're not actually having people create accounts on our website. Okay. So we're not getting any password information or anything like that. And this is really to drive people to a Slack community. So if you're not familiar with Slack, it's a messaging and collaboration platform. It's free to use. It's used by individuals and nonprofits and large enterprises. And the nice thing about that is you sign up with Slack, and now Slack's the one that's responsible for all of their enterprise security and all that kind of good stuff. But for us, it gives us the chance to build up a whole bunch of different Slack channels based on where the people are signing up. So like if you want to go under the home screen and go to the cohort map.
Yes. Let me see. Home screen. And where is, right here, cohort request and map.
Yep.
So when that comes up, and this I thought was fascinating, like kudos to you. I love when we have people that we can parlay their experience into helping the rest of us dummies get something productive out of it. But when I saw you guys had a map that started to show where people were located, I just thought like, well, cool. In case I ever go to Oceania,
and
I'm set.
And there we go. And so the idea here now is on the back end, I go in and right now this is manual again. It was just, I can't wait to train. All right. And I bet if you're anything like me, you can't wait to train either. So if you're using the service, if you want to call it that right now, and it's not super easy to use and intuitive, it's because we're kind of figuring that out. Right. So part of it is, where are people signing up and how do we create the channels to get people in similar regions grouped up, and then kind of self-organizing from there. So right now I'm working on that, right? It's putting together, now that we've got the community built and the regions identified and people kind of grouped together, it's now what can we do to kind of coordinate the rest of the stuff that was in the long sign up form, which is like, when do I want to train? Who's got mats? Do I need to be COVID tested? Have I been COVID tested? All that kind of stuff. So that's where we want to make the matchmaking experience as simple and as easy as possible. But for the time being, it's just something that we'll do, together as a community, right? And just kind of help each other out for the time being. And if after this airs, we have 10,000 users, we'll have a different order of magnitude problem to solve.
Well, thank you for the credit to my audience. We'll see how much these lazy bums are going to actually get up and motivate themselves to do it. But I would tell you this, Netflix sold a show about a matchmaker. Are you guys selling the rights to this? Because if you don't, you only lose out on those rights once. This is a beautiful matchmaking opportunity for you guys to show how you group people together and you go, ooh, this guy's a blue belt who only does no-gi, but this guy's a guy who would be lost without his worm guard. What could happen?
I like it. We might even have a show on our hands.
I mean, here's the reason why I laughed is that I immediately, when I saw the people and the signups, is that I immediately went to my home state. I live in California. So immediately once I saw that you guys had it all up and operational, and I saw there was a few folks, there was a few bites, I literally thought to myself, there's one in like a Glendale and one in Pasadena. And all I could think of is I'm in the valley over in this region. And I was like, I probably know who those guys are. I can almost tell you with certainty I know who they are. But it was nice to know, oh, they might be looking for somebody in a safe and responsible way. Good for them. That's pretty dope. And it's nice to know that it's within a comfortable amount of, I train further than this multiple times elsewhere. I would go to Brentwood and Santa Monica, though if I'm being honest, whoever's got Brentwood would probably have the best mats. So I might try and finagle training with them.
That is fantastic. I also I'm a pretty introverted person in general, out in public, at the gym. I just kind of keep to myself a lot, and I think that there's a lot of like long-term friendships that people have, and people maybe much more outgoing. And so, that's one of the other things that's happened is, I know a lot of people that, I'm connected with, and they have closer friendships, and they've been training, throughout this thing in small groups too. And so it was kind of like, yeah, I could reach out to a few people and kind of put myself out there. But there was also, I think, something for me that kind of felt safe about that, right? Like, I'm not putting myself out there on social media to get attacked. One of the questions I had gotten from a potential user was, my About Us doesn't have any information about me or Wes on there. And that was also part of it. I was like, I don't want us to get a bunch of crap right now. Like, we just want to get this thing going. We don't want a bunch of personal attacks. And so, that's again, part of the reasoning behind keeping things, just minimal and building up the community. And again, I figure if I struggle with a lot of the same things, mental health and all that kind of stuff, man, there's probably somebody else out there going through the same things as me. And it seems like it's working. I mean, lots of people have signed up since we got the post from Grapple Arts out on Facebook. It just sent the traffic, through the roof. So from July, 5th until a week ago, we probably had about 35 or 40 people signed up. And, in the past week, it's well over 100 now.
Yeah, ultimately, this is about solving problems. This isn't about me or Howard. I'm going back to training this week. Howard is doing some training. Ultimately, this isn't about us. We're beneficiaries of this own solution, but this is about the user base and solving a particular problem set that, in my opinion, needs to get solved. And the users and their feedback, they are actually the ones that are going to finish this product. They're going to be the ones that have input on finishing this whole thing out. Howard and I talked a lot, and I believe this as far as my own personal business. You have to launch something half baked, and then you let your users be in the process of finishing it. And so that's kind of our take too. We wanted to get something out there, and then we got a little bit of feedback on the privacy stuff. We got a little bit of feedback on the website, and those are all things that change, and the users are always going to be a big part of it.
It's how I pass guard too. Is I get impatient, and then I just jump for a Kimura, and it usually doesn't work, but we figure out what to do once we get there.
It's fine. I just blame the audience when the interview sucked. So I'm a big proponent of, if that sucked, it's half on the audience for not asking the right questions. No, I mean, I feel like there's such a practicality to all of this. So now let's say I fill out the form and it goes into your database. Walk me through how that Slack actually works.
Yeah. So essentially, you'll get an email back saying, hey, thanks for signing up. We're going to use Slack as a way to build this community and communicate. Can you reply back, right? And just confirm, like, this is you, you're a human, this is a good email address. Since I don't know how to make a fancy, automagic thing that does it. And then once they confirm their email address, we go in and they'll get an email from Slack with their invite. So that way it's a personal invite for them to join Slack. It's not something that can be forwarded out or posted online and a whole bunch of other people can join. It's just individuals being invited. And then we just ask people, I have one rule, like, just be cool. Like, you can adjust your about me, you can make a profile picture, you can post whatever you want. But we just want people to just be cool. Like, don't be a dick. Don't, that's it. And if you're not sure, like, you're probably being a dick. And everybody's been cool. I mean, that's it. It really feels like the same type of people that would want to be on Down to Roll, or the same type of people would be like, yeah, I'm being cool with everybody. Sounds like a cool thing to do. And then from there, it's just getting them added to either an existing channel, right, like Los Angeles or Orange County or Seattle or Phoenix, right, where we already have a cluster of people, or I'll get messages that say, hey, can you add Oklahoma or whatever, where a channel doesn't yet exist. And then from there, people are just chatting and discussing and kind of figuring out, hey, when are we going to go train?
That's awesome. Well, I am a huge fan of how the site looks so far, and I also want to bring up over on the side. I don't know, this might be too tiny to read, but you guys have also put resources for news and articles about BJJ and COVID news, strength and conditioning, which boring, solo drills, great, friends of Down to Roll, Academy directory, and blog. So, what is the Academy directory?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of our preliminary wish list. And again, I'm always overzealous. So, rather than keeping those pages hidden, I just went ahead and published them. But yeah, the idea is driving content that we think is relevant to the community. So obviously, what's going on in the news as it relates to COVID and jiu-jitsu is something that we want to put out there. Frequently asked questions. And again, as questions come in, we'll keep that up to date. Strength and conditioning is something that we want to build out. That there's just good stuff that, hey, if you can't get to the gym, you can't train. What are some of the things that you should do? And being able to have some content there. Solo drills, everybody's favorite. I was super zealous about my first couple of days of solo drill training and breaking a sweat, and really thought that was going to get me through the pandemic. But I've developed, there's some solo drills I really like. So it's like, let's start, sharing those, right? And getting feedback from the community about what resources are there. The Academy directory was another feedback from the community of, well, what are all the schools out there? Like, who's out there, who's open, who's not, who has maybe, like AJJ has social distancing classes. So let's build out a resource. And again, thinking about the future, right? 2 years from now, I'm going to think positive. 2 years from now, this is all behind us. I'm going back to traveling every other week and opening up 12 browser windows for Boston, looking up all the jiu-jitsu schools in Boston, looking up all their schedules side by side, seeing what their gym rules are and how to get a hold of them, and then what my business schedule is. Mm-hmm. So probably 2-3 hours go by and I'm like, okay, these are the 2 places I'm going to go train at. And then my schedule goes to shit and I don't get to train at any of them. So I want to make that easy too. So that's part of wanting to build out the Academy directory is essentially that same thing is one, what are we dealing with now and who's got schools and perhaps your school can't open, is closed and you need some help from the community. Let's use this as a way to rally folks around each other and again, do whatever we can to save and grow jiu-jitsu, right? So that's kind of the direction that I want to take the Academy directory and why we put that in there. And that is right now it's empty with just a mock-up, but there's a web form. So if you have an Academy or, ones that you know of, just crowdsourcing it and get people to submit them. If your Academy is up there and you don't want it there, just email me and we'll take it down.
Easy enough. Now I notice on the about section, there is a contribute little indicator there. So what is behind that and what are you looking to have people do with that?
So was just kind of throwing it out there that if people want to donate, anything, will be completely transparent about our costs. I got $200 in free Microsoft Azure credit that will burn out in about 3 months. So essentially, we want to keep the site up and running. Domain name that we got to renew soon and some stuff like that. So we're really minimal expenses to just keep the site up and running. But then the rest of it is how can other people help, right? Write blog posts, share on social media, help us with content. I've got a community member helping me get a video produced that we'll use for some social media advertising. So that's really it. Just again, giving everybody an opportunity who wants to help out, who has, talent and skill set, figuring out, what can I do to help?
I think one thing, and I'll pitch this to you guys, but I knew that one thing that always pissed me off about looking at the Zooms is that I would look at it and I'd be like, first of all, I do this enough. So I'm not really looking to be back on air just to be like, and what way does my sleeve go on this pillow or my dog? So I would propose this. I think you guys could be the leading resource on if you did have a training partner and you were to do a Zoom and to create a little bit of a digital seminar. I think you guys could really break grounds on some of that and encourage people who like, hey, if you guys are getting together, maybe one or two of those little mini events that you kind of create that, because I know my friends over at Tap Cancer Out, John Thomas is doing a grappling day, global grappling day is doing on December 12th of this year. And I remember telling him, I was like, who the hell am I going to roll with? Like, what am I going to do? And he just like, he goes, well, if you got somebody, you got somebody. And I go, my wife doesn't want to do this. What am I going to be like, babe, get out of this heel hook. Oh no, your knee. Oops.
Hey, I was just talking to one of my coaches. He's a close friend of mine, and I've kind of been going back and forth with him a little bit about, his opinion of online coaching and online training, and he is a huge advocate of it. He says as long as somebody's got another partner, he says that he has no problems. He thinks it's a great resource and should be more used in the community. So it's something that we are definitely open and looking to build out into the future, as far as having some online coaching and online seminars through our website.
Yep, we have like in our develop, like we have a development roadmap of essentially what we think of over probably 2 to 3 years of what really could happen. And then based on that roadmap and demand and the complexity, we figure out, what's the level of effort and when's the right time to put it into that. And this is one of those areas that, Wes just started a survey yesterday, right?
About 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And, just kind of getting, who might be interested, right, in training in small groups with some coaching on top of it. But because we know we've got a lot of instructors out there needing income, right? And you've got a lot of students who are no longer, paying tuition at a school. And so perhaps here's an opportunity to connect, goods and services.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I mean, the reason why I would even pitch out a seminar is, or some variation of like a digital coaching, which it sounds great that you guys are already having that in your plan. I just knew that when Submission Underground was going to put out these events and people didn't know how to feel, I said, I hope the athletes get opportunities and I want to encourage that. I also don't want to get together with my Yahoo friends and show that I'm being irresponsible. So we started doing this. That's how I used StreamYard, was to create a fight companion series that we would do with people at their houses. And I said, what I really want people to feel is like they're with their friends watching it, so that they have a sense of being connected with their goofy friends that they would be at the academy watching something. Yep. And I was like, yeah, this benefits our show, but it's also a lot of work to do these things. I just feel like the community needs a win, and whatever we can do to help the community create a win, we want to do and make good use of our time, because I could just as easily sit here and burn through 10 more seasons of Full House. But you know what? I just really feel like this is a better use of my time in terms of just trying to create a community. I would ask this though, Wes, how has this affected your business? Because I did read in the little profile that you were connected with physical therapy and recuperation. How has this affected your business?
So I run a business called the BJJ Physio, and I am at the BJJ Physio Instagram. That's my Instagram account, but I transitioned over to 100% online digital physical therapy, straight to conditioning. Back in September, before COVID even hit, I was already in the online realm. And so, I guess long story short, my day-to-day operations did not change when COVID hit. I was in my own industry. It's kind of interesting. I watched my peers and my colleagues completely scramble on how to start doing digital physical therapy. And, I got a considerable amount of hate from people that said, this is never going to work. How can you possibly do physical therapy online? And, everybody's going to poo-poo on something. And so at that moment it was me, and, I still went with it, and it works. And so for me, I felt completely prepared when COVID hit. I was rocking and rolling on my digital stuff, so it didn't really change what I do. And I work from home and I program everybody weekly, and I also have my own Slack community for my athletes, and it is what it is. I was kind of ready for it.
Good for you, man. I know for one thing that I have been joking with people about, which is, I do talk shows, and when people like Conan and Stephen Colbert were doing their at-home shows, I was like, ha, you idiots, now you got my technology. That's what you get for having network money. Now you have the same microphone and webcam I do. But I would tell people, I go, this is a skill that's hard to teach to people, but that, guess what? When shit went awry, my phone was off the hook ringing with people saying like, how do you like, I don't like, what do you use? And and I go, listen, here's what you got to do. You got to get a program like this or an Ecamm Live or some kind of client that you can go on and make a presence. The real question is, the audience is going to start telling you what they want. And not every day people are going to want to hear, well, I can't train. Like, you have to mix it up. You have to have one day of, man, I really want to train. Then one day of, okay, let's not talk about how much we want to train, because then the audience doesn't want to be there for that. And for me, when I would be interviewing the athletes, it's also a mix of, well, you're training, so I guess we got to figure out how I don't get jealous of you in the middle of this interview. And, the one thing that I've tried to avoid, and I think that is beautiful in the design of what this is that it doesn't get into the science of it. It doesn't get into the science of, do you believe it's happening or not? Because I've tried to make most of the interviews, most of the discussion of it, and most of my personal work off of it based on the idea that whether you believe it or not, or to the degree it's being reported or not, the effect is real. And the effect is really, really unfortunate to the people who earnestly want to try and do it the right way, and may not know. And I think the actual thing of just sitting down and not being active does more to harm us. So that's why, for me, it's so important that we get out there in front of people. We show them really important things like your guys' website. And, I think it's a great way to rally a base, to create a sense of community that if it does pay out in the forward, once we go past COVID, y'all earned it. Like,
cool.
Hey, listen, if somebody comes over and they're like, they're only famous because of COVID, it's like, well, they only existed because of COVID. So shut the fuck up and sign up for their website and get in your business.
Yeah. Hey, we're not trying to get into the weeds with people on, does it exist? Does it not? The fact of the matter is people's lives are affected with this. And, it's a problem that we felt we could help contribute something to solve, for a lot of people. And for those that are back to training, it's not a big deal. Hey, power to you. There's a whole section of us out there as well that who's, for one reason or another, whether it's we have a parent, grandparent, wife, spouse, whatever it is, our lives have been affected by this. And those are the folks who I think would benefit from this. And we're completely apolitical as far as the site and everything else. This is a completely solutions-driven service.
Good for you guys. That's awesome. Well, let's do this. Let's make sure. I mean, I've kept the note on here for everybody to see the entire time, and unfortunately, it meant that they had to see our faces a little bit smaller. But worth it, I say, worth it, because I think people need to go to the website. It's downtoroll.com. Do yourselves a favor. If you are truly unable to do any kind of training, or you find that you don't have resources to doing it, at the very least, look at the website, see if it can help you, fill out a form. And if you are able to train but just don't know how to, or you have concerns about how many people are training at one time in your local surroundings, I think this is a very comparable solution that's both practical and helpful to both you and this group of guys. I mean, Wes and Howard, both of these guys, I was really happy when you guys said you wanted to come on this show, because this is what I talk about when I say think outside the box, try and create things. On the day that I was driving back just around town, I had to run an errand, and I saw people were using like outdoors to do restaurants, and I saw people who were doing barbershops outdoors, all masked. And all I could think of was, man, I just have so much appreciation now for all of those people who have a side hustle, who have a thing that they're trying to do, and that with all of these recommendations and restrictions, they're still out there trying to do it. And to me, this was an extension of that for jiu-jitsu that I think is one that is necessary and that hopefully more people utilize, because it really at its core has a very solid idea.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. I mean, and again, it's one of those things where it has to be, you know, a we and an us thing, right? I mean, without the community, it's just not going to happen. And I think that if the cohort maps are showing anything, it's there's tons of interest all over the place. And even now, you know, there's people in Canada and the UK reaching out. And I have no idea what their zip codes look like and how to map them out. So it's just, you know, we just know, you know, there's definitely a demand for this. And the faster, you know, we get things built out and people signed up, the quicker people can get back to training. And at least for me, I can definitely say too, jiu-jitsu was part of my discipline. I mean, it was just the way, in order for me to train the way I wanted to train, there was a certain class schedule. I had to wake up at a certain time to get a certain amount of work done. I like to train in the morning, so I needed to get up early, work, get to the gym, get my training in, clean up, and then finish out my work day. And I just had a really good routine, and it kept a lot of things in my life in balance. And I just didn't realize that, you know, you remove that and, you know, really just became, you know, dysfunctional, depending on the extent you can talk to my wife about. But, you know, having this, some semblance of this back, with my cohort right now, being able to train pretty much on Tuesdays and Saturdays, it gives me this thing to look forward to, this schedule. Sore ribs are welcome back. And yeah, and it's given me more reasons to put that discipline back in my life. And I think that it's very tangible in terms of impact, my mood, my focus, my productivity. Just knowing that it's like this key pivotal part of my life is in some way, shape, or form not gone.
Absolutely. I'm yelling a lot less at people, and I think that's a good thing. You know,
Exactly.
I don't mean to yell at people, but yeah, I mean, what am I supposed to do at a certain point? You know, I'm sorry, Starbucks barista. Just, you know, wrong day, wrong time. Wes, and for your business, if people are looking to either train with you or get some kind of strength and conditioning program, where can they get in contact with you and where can they find you, sir?
You can get me right on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at _BJJ_physio. And you can go to my website, www.thebjjphysio.online. Again, that's thebjjphysio.online.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, I cannot thank you enough. I'm going to close up shop here, but I'll talk to you off air in just a second. Ladies and gents, please go check out downtoroll.com, sign up, get you some good training in, and create a better sense of community. So, gents, I'll talk to you in just a second. I'm going to close this bitch up. And I just want to say thank you to all of you who have been tuning in today. We had 2 back-to-back sets of interviews. Very stoked that we were able to talk to our friend Chris Sunshine from Bellator. Had an issue with AJ Aga's arm. And, you know, they fought it out, and they still have issues, but that's not important. What's important is go to down2roll.com, sign up, get some training in. I know, it's super important. And we're going to do as much as we can to help spread the word so that people who want to train can train, and responsibly, if that is what they want to do. And to the rest of you guys who are just bleeding and just going on out to your gyms, that's cool. I'm staying at my house mostly anyway, so it's not like I'm gonna super die. But anyway, let's just get through this together. Anyway, as a reminder, we want to tell you guys we'll be back on tonight. We'll be watching Brady Wang doing a little bit of a Let's Watch for his Dana White Contender Series debut. Super happy for my friend. And if you get the chance, go over to our good friends over at Nogi BJJ Gear. Buy yourself some rash guards. Buy yourself some shorts. We're all fat. COVID weight, hashtag But if you do, use a promotional code GrapplingHour15, save yourself 15% off of whatever you put in your cart. There's also an adorable Frenchie rash guard. Not saying I got it, but I probably did. I did. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. My name's Rafa Esparza. It's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats eventually.